Hello, this is George Curran, bass trombonist of the New York Philharmonic, and I'm here to introduce to you a whole new line of mouthpieces made by Ultimate Brass. I started working with Sun He and Ultimate Brass about 2.5 years ago, and we really hit it off at the very beginning, and he has sent me boatloads of mouthpieces over the last couple of years, trying to find something that would make me happy in the needs that I have in the many different kinds of playing that I have to do in my job and elsewhere. So, so there are 4 mouthpieces we've developed together. I think that they're all fantastic, and I will be using them in all of my playing at one point or another. So the first one I have in my horn right now is the orchestral model, which I will use in my day-to-day time here at the Philharmonic, and it is fantastic for playing with a full trombone section, and especially has a great blend with a tuba player, Alan Baer in my case, and so it's pretty much, it can do anything I need it to do, and would suffice for me as far as any of my playing that I would want. However, I do have other kinds of playing that I do, and so this, as an alternative to the orchestral model, we worked on what we decided to call the Recital mouthpiece, and this one is just a little bit lighter sound, just a little more streamlined, and it has, so the flexibility from top to bottom is even easier, and the articulation is even more efficient, and everything really pops out well. And also it's just a tiny bit easier to play, so that when I play a full recital of many pieces, that it's easier for me to make it from the beginning all the way to the end. But this can also be used as an orchestral mouthpiece, so it's not very different. They're pretty close. And if we're playing something very light, or if, for example, Joe Alessi is playing an alto trombone, and it's just 3 trombones, or Mozart Mass or something like that, then I will switch to the Leggero mouthpiece. It means light, and it serves great in playing either with this horn, or what I even like to do better, even like to do more, is to switch to a single valve bass trombone. So it's basically a large tenor, basically, but with more of a bass trombone bore. And this fits here and has such a great sound when you're using something for some smaller instruments. and it makes it easy. Articulation is fantastic, and the soft playing, getting some color in the sound in a soft dynamic is easier than I've ever had it. So, however, that's not the only kind of playing we do here. Sometimes we have 4 trombones in the section, or I might be going down to STS to go do our trombone workshops down there. And so then I would switch to the crusher. So the crusher is basically, it feels like a deeper feeling, deeper mouthpiece than the orchestral model. And so the pedal range is really fantastic, and it centers really well. I can get up and down the horn. I mean, I can play high, but for this would be when I would switch to, if we're going to play Alpine Symphony or anything very large. So all of these mouthpieces are really great, and you should definitely find a place to check them out. They'll be getting distributed to a lot of different dealers pretty soon. But you might want to also check the Ultimate Brass website, which is ultbrass.com, and they have all the specs there, and they will have sort of explanations for you as well. But I urge you to check them out and let us know what you think and which one is your favorite. Best of luck. While we're talking about trombones and mouthpieces and excerpts and solos and all of these things, it would be a good time to talk about a little bit of the fundamentals for playing the trombone. I think that working on the fundamentals is probably the fastest way to develop any of those other things. So the easier it is for you to play the trombone or any instrument, the easier it is for you to let your inner musician come out. So I think just about any great teacher of a brass instrument would say that the first thing we talk about is the airstream. The trombone is not going to resonate itself, and the only reason it's resonating is because of this column of air that is traveling through it. And but it is also a very challenging thing to work with students on, because we can't really feel the air in the same way that we can feel something that's tactile in our hands, and we can't see the air either. So especially when you're playing into a mouthpiece, it's completely concealed from us, and so a lot of times it's very difficult to diagnose problems. So for me, I have really enjoyed working with maybe a unique strategy about this, and that is to really feel as much as I can without the trombone what the air stream should be doing. And I try to get well, if I just demonstrate it first, it would be easiest. Maybe something like from the Ride of the Valkyries, the air should sound like and I can't help but conduct with my hand when I do that, because my body gets really engaged. I find that when people just say, play this piece, a lot of times they let the horn, they come to the horn and they think the horn's going to do a lot of the work for them. And so for me, forcing myself to feel what that airstream feels like and make it a compelling interpretation just from listening to the airstream, I think that really helps people engage their air. A lot of times things are just unsupported or undersupported, and they get away with enough to make the horn resonate, but maybe not enough to just sound really world class or their best. So I like to do those kinds of things, whether it is with something fast and articulated like the Creation, or something legato like the opening lines of Rhenish. Just long quarter notes, and oftentimes what I feel like happens is if you were to try to imitate that, a lot of times you might get something more that's a little swelly. It's usually some manipulation of the aperture, a little chewing here, maybe not really being quick with the tongue. So I think trying to really isolate something very specific, like just what does the delivery of the air into the horn feel like and sound like, and what should it sound like, I think that those that really helps get people sort of in the ballpark of where they need to be before they work on something more sophisticated. One of the other things that I like to work on is once we have a good sound, is trying to connect the notes, right? We've formed the notes now how do we connect one note to the next? And so that essentially is the definition of our legato playing. And I like to think of there are three different kinds of legato that we can make, physically on the horn. There's a lip slur, there is a tongued slur, and there's a valve slur. And for bass trombone players especially, or anybody that uses valves in the rest of the brass family, that's an especially important thing because people don't get the notes to connect in the same way when you're playing one thing back to back with another. So if I try to maybe just do some half steps on the same partial, those should sound essentially the same in articulation and note shape as when you do a lip slur, or if you go on to a valve slur down into the lower range. So keeping the airstream flowing is very important, But I find that oftentimes, if there was one piece of advice, it would be two pieces. Two pieces of advice. One is for the valves, and that is to immediately blow more air into the valve than the open horn. Let the note immediately resonate better, give it some support. And then on the articulated lip slurs, you want to feel that, that you're tonguing hard enough so that the note is clear. If I was to play these notes really legato on a piano back to back or on a trumpet, there's going to be a very clear, definite articulation there. And I feel like a lot of times trombone players err on the side of glissando legato, which basically nobody else in the brass or wind section is very appreciative of. It's hard to match, though it can be something that's it's almost like an effect. So I try not to be too legato to lose clarity. So that would be something else I really strongly suggest people work on and listen very carefully for. And with a recording, to really hear what you think, make sure that what you think is happening is really happening. And maybe one last thing I like to talk about is going up into the upper range of the bass trombone. We all probably play bass trombone for a reason instead of tenor, and either we love the low range or we struggle with the high range. So I want you to sort of embrace that the upper range of the horn can be really beautiful, and while it is more work for us to play up there as the tenor players do, we should be able to play as high as any tenor player and be able, but I don't expect to be able to play as loud necessarily or have as much endurance in the very upper ranges. So as we go higher, I try not to pop the notes out as I go higher. Right? It's the notes are a different air level of energy, and so in order to get to the next one, it needs to be faster to the next partial, but usually the aperture stays too wide. And so I want you to think of the aperture as sort of telescoping closed, more and more closed, as we go higher. That will automatically enable the air to move faster, even if you don't adjust the air. But if you give it just a tiny bit of emphasis of the air, then the air will travel through there with more support. And the challenge is to not just keep getting louder and louder as you help out more and more. So I like to think of the ascending lip slurs as a sort of a diminuendo. Even though it doesn't always necessarily sound like a diminuendo, to me, inside, I'm feeling like I'm playing softer and softer, but with faster and faster air. And the higher notes will always ring very easily, certainly farther away from you. So as we go higher, right, the air is going to get faster, the aperture is going to tighten up, and in order to get the fastest airspeed, we need to really maintain those corners. So. That all of these little points may give you some inspiration in your practice, and if you have any questions about them, please go visit Ultimate Brass, ultbrass.com, or send me a message wherever you can find it, and I'm happy to try to field those things for you. So, best of luck.